Sarit, also this entire operation, whether it's from the pager explosions, the walkie-talkies, eliminating the commanders, and now looking at a very precise strike at the Hezbollah headquarters, exactly where Hassan Nasrallah's bunker was. It does require intelligence, a penetration of intelligence within Lebanon, within Hezbollah. In your appreciation, how much of Israeli intelligence penetration do you see in this entire operation within the Hezbollah?
I don't think you need my words in this. You see for yourself. All the operations that you just mentioned indicate years of work. I think that you can see even the difference between Lebanon and Gaza, that the IDF was preparing in the past decade, and maybe even more, to a scenario of a full-scale war with Hezbollah, because we knew that Hezbollah went through major changes in the past years, and that Hezbollah had a plan to invade to the Galilee and occupy the Galilee. Hezbollah had tens of thousands of rockets that were hidden in the Lebanese villages, including rockets that are accurate, and Nasrallah himself threatened to launch these rockets to the civilian and military infrastructures of Israel. So the IDF was preparing to defend the state of Israel from this kind of scenario, in opposed to Gaza, that we were surprised. And I think that here, what is happening, it's a very good example of what happens, how many Israelis are getting killed when we are surprised, and how many Israelis are getting killed when we are taking the initiative against our enemies before they use their full capabilities. Having said that, again, as a resident of northern Israel, I am under constant fire since this war started in October 8 in the north. Like, we had more than 3,000 attacks of Hezbollah constantly every day since this war started, and Hezbollah was offered a ceasefire by the Americans many, many times, and it just refused.
Right. Sarat, in terms of the threat to Israel when it comes to these organizations, now keeping and comparing capability and proximity in mind, was Hamas the bigger target for Israel or Hezbollah?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the last question.
Keeping proximity and capability of the organizations such as the Hamas and Hezbollah, which was a bigger threat or is a bigger threat to Israel?
Hezbollah was much a bigger threat to Israel than Hamas, since Hezbollah was the fighters themselves were more experienced. They fought in Syria and they won in Syria. That's one thing. Second, the arsenal of rockets was much bigger and much more advanced, and technology was much more advanced with that. We talk about, as I've said, the precision-guided missiles in the hand of Hezbollah. In the current war, Hezbollah launched thousands of drones and anti-tank missiles against us, which were a problem with our aerial defense systems. Anti-tank missiles we cannot even intercept. So it definitely posed a much bigger threat than Hamas. But Hamas took the initiative, and that's why there was a different outcome.
Sarat, coming back to Hassan Nasrallah, now IDF has announced his death, but Iran and Hezbollah continue to maintain that he is safe. In this entire claim versus counterclaim, what really happens from here on? Because the admissions when there's a death comes from the Iranian and Hezbollah quarters also soon enough. But this time around, it seems like there are differences in the voices that are coming from Israel and what we're hearing from Lebanon and Iran.
Look, I don't know if the Iranian general, who is, again, the one who replaced the previous one that was killed in Damascus, there are rumors now that he was killed as well in this meeting with Nasrallah. And by the way, we can also assume that they were not meeting just to drink coffee. I don't know whether he was killed. It matters if an Iranian personality was killed in this attack or not. But I can say that the supreme leader of Iran faces a dilemma, because this was the most professional and the most important and almost a partner. Hezbollah and Nasrallah himself, as a figure, were almost a partner to the Iranian ayatollahs. And now that this is gone, and again, not gone completely, still launching rockets at us, but this is gone with regard to the strategic capabilities, Iran has a dilemma whether to switch its attention to cultivate others, maybe in Syria, maybe in Yemen, maybe in West Bank, to push them forward against Israel or to just arm them, or to go to a temporary ceasefire. But I want to make it very clear. Iran, Ayatollahs of Iran are not going to change their ideology, and they are not going to change their motivation to eliminate the state of Israel. This is part of the hardcore of what they believe in. So if we will see any negotiations for ceasefire now that will be initiated by Iran or pushed by Iran, we should assume that this is a temporary approach, a tactical approach, in order to preserve the capabilities that still remain either in the hands of Hezbollah and others. And that's why I think that now it's important that any ceasefire we get will be enforced with something effective that will bring us security and will make sure that these militias, whether it's Hamas, whether it's Hezbollah, whether elsewhere, are not going to recover and become even bigger armies than what they used to be.
Right. Two more questions before I let you go. One, what do you think is going to be the next course of action? There's a lot of regrouping. The communication links for Hezbollah absolutely decimated and destroyed. What's the next course of action? Where do you see this war headed? Because this is now not just a seven-front war for Israel, but the Lebanon-Israel war front itself is big enough and quite large for Israel to be focused on. So what's the next course of action that you see or foresee from the Hezbollah side?
From the Hezbollah side, I think they will try to continue to launch the rockets as we've seen this morning. But they also have an economy munition, meaning after all the attacks of the IDF against the storages of rockets, they are not capable of launching, and they don't want to launch every day massive amounts, because that way they will finish the rockets very quickly. I think they would strive to create some kind of a war of attrition as much as possible, but at the same time I must say that there is a lot of confusion now in Hezbollah and decisions were not taken yet, and it's very soon to evaluate what will happen. I think all options are on the table, including tries of infiltration, maybe not only from Lebanon, maybe also from Syria. There is presence of Hezbollah, Lebanese Hezbollah in Syria and the Israeli-Syrian border as well. So this is also an option, and since we cannot know, and Hezbollah itself haven't decided yet, the IDF here is in high preparedness and alert to any of these scenarios.
Right, Sarit, final question to you. Prime Minister Netanyahu cut short his US visit and is returning to Israel. The situation certainly is going to escalate when it comes to the West Asian crisis. But the international community, particularly leaders from the Arab world, while there's no love lost there for Hezbollah, have really come out and stood against Israeli action. They have been insisting, including your allies, the United States of America, have come out and said that this escalation was really not something that the international community was looking at and looking for, and continue to seek ceasefire. In such a scenario, where do you think Israel stands, and where do you think, or how do you think Netanyahu is going to react? He has been unrelenting in his action against Hezbollah and Hamas. Will he reconsider his decisions? Because he has become a little unpopular in certain quarters within Israel as well.
Sorry, I cannot relate to politics in Israel. It's too complicated in 2 minutes conversation. In general, I am on those who believe that it doesn't matter which of our leaders, eventually they all want the security of Israel, and when these decisions are being made at these levels, this is not something that politics get into the room. I still believe in that. I hope I'm right, but I cannot say more than that.
Sarit Zehawi, thank you so much for joining us here and speaking to us.